The House Committee on Labor will come to order. Will the clerk please take attendance?
Chair Hosma.
Here.
Representatives Menzer. Here. Colazar.
Here.
O'Neill.
Present.
Andrews.
Here.
Churches. Present. Wogella.
Here.
Wozniak.
Here.
Mueller.
Here.
Coons.
Here.
Mr. Chair, you have 10 members present. You do have a quorum.
We have a motion to adopt the minutes from the September 25, 2024 meeting. Representative O'Neill makes that motion. The minutes are adopted. The first item on our agenda is a set of bills, Senate Bills 829 and 830, which align our MIOSHA penalties with the federal penalties. The bills are sponsored by Senator John Cherry. I, at this time, would invite Senator Cherry to present on Senate Bills 829 and 830. Good morning, Senator Cherry.
Thank you, Chair Hosma and committee members for bringing up this legislation. We do have the Deputy Director here to present on kind of explaining our program here, which I think will help illuminate some questions that you might have as we go forward. But Michigan is one of 26 states authorized by federal OSHA to operate its own occupational safety and health enforcement program. And under the operating agreement, the state must be at least as effective as the federal program, including having consistent maximum penalties. In September 2021, the Federal Department of Labor notified Leo that Michigan was out of compliance with federal maximum penalties and that the state was obligated to adopt such penalties. So the two bills before you, Senate Bill 829 and 830, make the necessary changes to our MIOSHA to bring the program back into compliance with federal standards, which is necessary for our ability to maintain our own program.
Thank you, Senator Cherry. Are there any committee questions for Senator Cherry on these bills? Thank you, Senator Cherry. Stay right there. Because you're there, Senator Cherry, I understand that we're going to also ask you to present about Senate Bill 895, which adjusts ratios for electricians and their apprentices. Yes.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, I was a little confused. Senate Bill 895 sets a 1-to-1 ratio for journeyman to apprentice ratio for electricians. This is very similar to the bill that this committee took up a number of months ago in relation to plumbers. The difference, I suppose is be the best way to put it, is for many, many years we had a 1-to-1 ratio within the state of Michigan. That was until 2017 when it was changed to the current 3-to-1 on a job site. Increasing this ratio in oversight of apprentices helps both from a safety perspective but also from a training perspective. If you want to make sure that we're training folks properly, making sure that you have that help from the journeyman or master electrician, certainly make sure that that person is getting all the education they need to be effective as they go through their apprenticeship, and so that they're able to effectively complete the program and pass the state licensing exam. So this bill itself returns us back to that 1-to-1 ratio that existed prior to 2017.
Are there any committee members who wish to ask questions of Senator Cherry about 895? Representative Kuntz.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Senator, for coming today. This is a really interesting situation because we have data before 2017, and then we have the data since then. And there has not been an uptick in safety issues relating to apprentices since it increased. So do we have any data? Nobody's going to argue about safety, and I fully support that. But the data doesn't show there's been an increase in injuries with apprentices under the higher ratios. Do you have any data that contradicts that?
We can pull forward data to provide you on workplace safety.
But it already shows there's no increase, there's no uptick. There's the apprentice injury rate has not gone up.
Yeah, we have some folks who are willing to testify concerning the safety issue, and I'll bring them forward.
And they have some safety data?
I can't answer the question for them.
Thank you, Senator Cherry. Our now call up Dawn Jack, the Deputy Director of MIOSHA, and Brennan Smith from Leo My understanding is they have a PowerPoint presentation for us on Senate Bills 829 and 830. We'll get back to 895 later.
Thank you, Chair Hadsma, members of the committee, for having us today. I'll be brief. I want to say thank you to Senator Cherry for introducing these bills and for introducing the topic today for the committee. I am going to turn it right over to Dawn to go through this presentation for you all.
Thank you and good morning, Mr. Hadsma, Chairman Hadsma, and fellow committee members. As previously mentioned, my name is Dawn Jack, and I have the privilege of being the Deputy Director for the Michigan Occupational Safety and Health Administration. And I want to thank you for giving us the opportunity as an organization to present testimony today in support of Senate Bills 829 and 830. On behalf of Director Pickleman and myself, I also would like to extend a warm thank you to Senator Cherry for his sponsorship of these necessary bills in our eyes. Briefly, our mission as an organization is to help protect the health and safety of Michigan workers. And we do that through a steadfast motto of educating employers on the safety and health regulations that they're subject to before we regulate them. Some basics, we've grown a bit overall as state OSHA-run programs throughout the country. We are now one of 29 state plans that are authorized by federal OSHA. With one caveat, we must be at least as effective as federal OSHA in the administration of a workplace occupational safety and health program. Our current program covers 300,000 Michigan businesses and growing every day, and over 4 million Michigan workers. Some benefits of being a state-run OSHA program are that we can be the incubators of innovation, meaning that we have the opportunity to work hand in hand with Michigan businesses to address their needs and concerns in the subject matter of workplace safety and health and cater our regulations to those needs of both employees and employers within the industries operating in this state, rather than having to go through the extensive red tape that is notorious at the federal level. State plans have the opportunity for greater flexibility and accessibility. Businesses have the opportunity to work here with our state legislature as well as our state OSHA-run program to facilitate the necessary changes to the regulations before having to go to District of Columbia and Washington. We also have a broader consultation strategy. We are afforded and blessed with additional state funding beyond what is provided to our organization at the federal level so that we can have an expansive consultative program so that we can educate Michigan businesses and Michigan workers on our regulations through a robust training institute and on-site free consultations to employers so that they are ready for a MIOSHA inspection before we ever come to their door. We cover an additional 500,000 plus Michigan public sector workers that would otherwise not have protections if we were under the jurisdiction of federal OSHA. And that is because the Occupational Safety and Health Act at the federal level does not cover public sector employees, but only private sector employees. However, as a state-run OSHA program, we have the opportunity to cover those public sector workers, some of those employees who are in some of the most hazardous occupations, firefighting, law enforcement, correctional officers, emergency responders, publicly funded healthcare facilities, and transportation workers. And as the wife of a police officer, that means a great deal to me. Our maximum penalty structure right now, we've been notified by federal OSHA, is deficient. That is because in 2016, federal OSHA increased the maximum penalty amounts for various types of citations through federal law. State plan states have been notified, as Senator Cherry alluded to, that we are required to be at least as effective as the federal OSHA maximum penalty structure. And for your education, whenever a state-run OSHA program is determined to be not at least as effective as the federal program, federal OSHA can take certain steps to take over and reclaim jurisdiction in the state, and has done so in the state plan states of Arizona and Utah recently, due to the fact that they had not increased their maximum penalty amounts. So we perceive the threat of a potential takeover of the Michigan state program to be a very real threat. Michigan is currently only one of 6 remaining state plan states that have not adopted the federal OSHA maximum penalties to date. In comparison, our current maximum penalty structure is $7,000 for what is known as a serious violation of a MIOSHA safety or health regulation. That means that that citation is believed, or that violation is believed to potentially cause the death or serious physical harm of an employee, and our maximum penalty for such an offense is $7,000 currently. For an employer that is determined to have repeatedly violated a MIOSHA safety or health regulation or willfully violated it, our current maximum penalty structure is $70,000. In comparison, the current federal OSHA current maximum penalties for a serious citation is $16,131, and for a repeat or a willful violation, it's $161,323. There is also, at the federal level, an annual adjustment to the federal maximum penalty amounts based on the Consumer Price Index. MIOSHA's philosophy on penalties has unchanged, that penalties are a part of the deterrent effect for continued safety and health violations in Michigan workplaces. But we also believe that enforcement presence plays a big role. We liken it to what keeps an individual from driving the speed limit. Is it the cost of the fine that they may incur from speeding, from that speeding ticket, or is it the police officer that they see in their rearview mirror or ahead of them in the median? All MIOSHA penalties collected for our citations go into the Michigan General Fund. MIOSHA does not receive any funding to operate our program from the General Fund. So there is no direct correlation to our citation penalties and the operation of our program. And we think that's an important distinction. MIOSHA penalties are not designed to be punitive. We understand that there is no amount of money that can make up for the loss of a life or a limb, and therefore these are not intended to be compensatory or punitive damages. When calculating our penalties, we take great lengths to consider mitigating factors in assessing that penalty. We consider the severity of the injury or illness if it were to occur, the probability of the injury or illness occurring at all. We consider the size of the employer, giving small employers up to an 80% reduction before that penalty is ever sent to the employer. We also consider the good faith efforts of the employer to comply with our workplace safety and health regulations and afford those who have made good faith steps towards compliance up to a 30% reduction. We consider their history of MIOSHA violations, and those employers who have relatively little to no regulatory citation history with our organization can afford themselves up to an additional 10% reduction. All of those reductions are routinely taken, and therefore the maximum penalty amount is an exception, not the rule in MIOSHA's organization. MIOSHA's current serious maximum penalty is $7,000. But our average penalty amount, taking into consideration all of those factors, is actually $1,450. And for employers with less than 25 employees, that average maximum penalty that they'll receive is $615. And we will continue to calculate our penalties with these same reduction factors and considerations, even if this proposed legislation passes. If federal OSHA takes over jurisdiction in Michigan, we will lose several key advantages as a state-run OSHA program. First and foremost, our public sector employees will no longer have coverage in this state. Our extensive consultation, education, and outreach efforts, combined with our federal and state funding, will be diminished. Our program administration will no longer be located in Lansing and no longer subject to the legislative control of bodies such as this. And Michigan stakeholders who we actively involve in our policy development through advisory committees that help us develop our safety and health standards, and our focus groups that help us prioritize our strategic plan agenda will no longer have that voice in the local level. And we will lose valuable, affordable safety and health training that we operate through the MIOSHA Training Institute today. Our penalties are a deterrent, but we first and foremost always strive to educate employers and employees through our consultation and other services before we ever take the drastic step of an inspection and resulting citations and penalties. Even when penalties are issued, we always reduce those penalties based on those numerous factors, and they often create extensive reductions for Michigan businesses. In reality, our average penalty by MIOSHA for a serious violation is only 20% of the maximum penalty allowed under the current statute. OSHA is mandating that Michigan update our penalties to match federal penalties. They have voiced that not only in a letter from the federal national office, but also through 2 recent audit findings in our annual audits by federal OSHA. We take the position we must adopt and match the federal amounts, or we risk the potential of OSHA taking over their safety and health program in our state. If OSHA were to take over, as I mentioned, we lose worker coverage. We lose extensive services that we provide to Michigan businesses. And the reality is that if we do lose our status as a state-run OSHA program, Michigan employers are not going to avoid these increase in maximum penalties. It is just a matter of who will enforce our occupational safety and health regulations, us or federal OSHA. And we think, based on the customer feedback we've received over many years, operating almost 50 years as a state-run OSHA program, that employers, by and large, would prefer a state-run OSHA program. That is reflected in the 98% of employers who reported to us through customer surveys and comment cards that they find the MIOSHA services useful. At this time, I want to thank you for the opportunity to present in support of this proposed legislation, and I'm happy to accept any questions.
Are there questions for either witness? Thank you, Mr. Smith. Thank you, Ms. Jack.
Thank you.
Next, I'd like to call up Mr. Aaron Pangborn from IBW Local 665 and Chad Jansen from the Electrical Administrative Board to speak on this issue. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, gentlemen.
Thanks for having us. We're on the mic there. We're going to speak on behalf of Senate Bill 895. Aaron Pangborn, business manager for Local 665 IBW, also representing the state conference today for IBEW. Chad Jansen, my colleague here, is my assistant manager in Lansing here, as well as a member of the state electrical board. Yes, all right, so for decades, Michigan law required the electrical contractors in Michigan to ensure that there were an equal amount or greater number of licensed journeymen on a job site than registered apprentices. This minimum 1-to-1 minimum ratio assured adequate supervision of apprentices, also ensuring safety and quality of work. In 2017, this ratio was watered down to allow as many as 3 apprentices per journeyman on a job site. This ratio was insufficient to assure proper supervision of apprentices and to ensure safety and quality of work. Supervision of apprentices is important for multiple reasons. Electricians inherently work in a dangerous occupation. We're dealing with live voltages, high voltages every day. They must be, They must be properly secured to avoid the risk of injury and electrocution. Special care must be taken to avoid fires, arc flashes, and other mishaps that can lead to catastrophic injury, and a 1-to-1 ratio makes for a much safer job site. The apprenticeship process by its very nature is on-the-job training. Direct supervision and mentorship by a journeyman or master electrician is vital to ensure that apprentices learn the techniques and mathematics necessary to move on and become journeymen or masters themselves. And lastly, quality. Improperly installed electrical wiring and equipment can lead to outages, short circuits, and worse. The risk of fire, electrical shock, and electrocution increases when fewer fully trained electricians are used on a project. A 1-to-1 ratio ensures that all work will be supervised and checked by licensed journeymen or masters electricians. Another thing I'd like to point out is the DOL, state or federal DOL, will not approve any new standards that are not a 1-to-1 ratio. Also, we've heard some pushback from the solar industry on this. I'd like to point out that the solar industry are developers. They're not contractors. They're not training these people. So they're people that are trying to make a dollar like everybody else. So, the solar industry, there are partners in this, but the electricians are the ones that are installing the solar work, okay? 60% of the apprentices in Michigan are in construction. 87% of those are in union programs. So you can see we're training the majority of our apprentices in our state. I feel we're the experts in that field. So the IBW urges the legislation to restore the 1-to-1 apprenticeship ratio to Michigan law. The 1-to-1 ratio is consistent with recommendations by the U.S. Department of Labor and best practices for electrical apprenticeships. The current 1-to-3 ratio puts electrical contractors who follow best practices at a competitive disadvantages versus those that do not. We also support increasing fines and penalties for contractors and their master electrician of record who fail to adhere to the 1-to-1 ratio. And from there, I'll let Mr. Jansen speak on behalf of the Electrical Administrative Board.
Good morning.
in his position there.
So my name is Chad Jansen. I serve as the Assistant Business Manager of IBW Local 665. I've been in the trade for 15 years. I've done everything from being a journeyman to being an organizer and now serving on the State Electrical Board. And I would like to speak not only to the importance of the 1-to-1 ratio, but also to the importance of having some enforcement on that. And the reason for that is because now that I sit on the State Electrical Board, over the past year, 90 to 95% of our cases that we hear are coming from people who cannot get their hours certified so that they can advance in their career to even take their state test. I'd also like to speak from the perspective of being an IBW Assistant Business Manager. I have young people that walk into my office every day and say, I want to make a career change, I want the opportunity, what do you have? And so I say, well, what is that? And they say, well, I'm a third-year apprentice. Well, the really hard part for me is I look them up to see if they've been registered as an apprentice. They've never been registered as an apprentice. So then I have to inform them that they're not registered as an apprentice, and unless they can get their hours certified from their employer, they won't be able to take their test. And they still have to get registered as an apprentice to even start counting. And so from an industry standard, from both being on the IBW side and sitting on the electrical board, what I see is the fact that there are individuals out there who are being improperly trained or not even registered at all and not having the opportunity to make their decisions on changing careers if they want to go. And honestly, it's the workforce that I'm concerned about. Because we have a workforce out there, one, that isn't being registered, are being limited opportunities for the fact that they can't get their hours certified. And so something needs to be done so people can have the opportunity to advance in their career, right? And so that's why I'm here this morning, is to speak kind of in a dual role, but to the industry as a whole, the problems that we're seeing out there as well. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Are there any questions for either Mr. Pangborn or Mr. Jansen and Representative Kuntz?
Gentlemen, thanks for coming today. You're not going to be surprised at my question. You heard it before. We had data before. The apprentice injury rate, we had 7 years of data. And we looked at the most recent 7 years of data under the new ratio, and there was no change. So when you talk about safety, the numbers that it doesn't, and I'm using OSHA numbers. It's not correct. There is no safety change on the new ratios, number one. And my second question, if I may, Mr. Chair, when we talk about career advancement, if the three of us walk in and say, I'd like to be an apprentice, right now all three of us could be. And if we go to this, two of us are going to have to say, I'm sorry, I can't hire two of you. Isn't this going to decrease the number of opportunities? So those are my two questions. There's no safety data unless you have something I haven't seen, and I'd love that. I was hoping the senator would have it. And tell me again how this doesn't decrease opportunities. Please and thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sir, if you push your red.
That's why I bring them along with me. All right, so yeah, the safety data. From my understanding, the way the state tracks the safety data through my OSHA and other departments is it really doesn't define apprentice versus journeyman. It just says electrical worker, electrician, plumber. It doesn't just differentiate between the two. And I hear your frustration. I think it should be. I'm encouraging. Sounds like you want to encourage some legislation to track that data. So I think that falls on the state to kind of track that data and differentiate between the journeyman and the apprentice. But electrical workers as a whole, no. What's that?
They do track it.
Between apprentices and journeyman? I think it just says electrician. I believe it's just electrician. So they're not differentiating between journeyman, master, or apprentice. It's just electrician. So if you look at the numbers, it doesn't say an apprentice electrician. It'll just say electrician, right? So yeah, I'm frustrated too. I think it should differentiate between the two because that way we could actually see the data. But we speak on behalf of experience. I've got almost 30 years in the trade. Chad's got over 15 years, and with what we see in our day-to-day lives, in our jobs. So unfortunately, that's what we're seeing, as well as the training aspect. You talk about the opportunities. The opportunities are limitless with, whether you're a union IBW electrician or a non-union electrician, the opportunities are there. It just takes that employer to hire more journeymen. Okay. And that's the training. So go ahead. So.
Actually, Senator, it's not, I'm sorry.
I'm a lowly representative.
I apologize. I've only done this twice, so I'm a little nervous.
Man of the people, man of the people. Sir.
Please. So actually, it doesn't limit.
Right.
So 3 people come to apply, us 3 are hiring apprentices. That's fine, we can all hire those apprentices. The issue is, and why I'm seeking on behalf of the Enforcement Act, is when the employer does not register that individual as an apprentice with the state, because that's what has to happen. They have to be registered with the state. They have to have 8,000 hours in 4 years and be in an accredited program, right? And so what I'm testifying to is the fact that not only the electrical board that sees cases where we have to tell that individual they have to try to go back and get their hours certified, right, in order to be able to sit and write their state test, that's where the limitation comes in. Or when an individual comes into my office and says, hey, I'm a 3rd-year apprentice, and then I have to say, I'm sorry, you've never been registered as an apprentice. So unless he can get those hours certified, and right now there is no legislation that says the employer has to certify those hours, even if the employee has pay stubs that says that they work for that person, they still are being limited because unless they can get that letter in order to prove to the state that they've done 3 years as an apprentice, they can't sit to write their state test.
I understand it, and I agree, but I don't think this covers that, does it? This legislation doesn't mandate any of the registration on apprentices. Mr. Chair has been more than generous with me. I'm going to yield the floor.
I'm not sure there's anyone else to whom to yield it. Okay, Representative Wagella.
Hi, thank you so much for being here to testify. I think this is great legislation. I think it restores the law the way it should be. But in the testimony, you're talking about the U.S. Department of Labor and its requirements and how that might affect us here. Can you dive in a little bit more on that? I thought you mentioned it in passing, but so like if we don't get this in line with the Department of Labor, what is at stake?
Yeah, the DOL, most union apprenticeships, whether you're an electrician or a plumber or anything, they're going to approve a 1-to-1 ratio. You can't request a 1-to-2 ratio, such as the plumber's bill that is up there, which I think is what they're doing. But the minimum, the standard is the 1-to-1. That's available on the DOL website. It's just, I literally talked to my apprenticeship director about this just a couple days ago, and that's just what he's being told from the local office here in Michigan. So. But yeah, it's just a 1-to-1 ratio, and the feds see that as a standard for training. So, yeah.
So this would just put us in line in federal standards and back to where Michigan was historically.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
exactly.
thanks.
Yeah, and I always like to say, it's like with the ratio, it's like anything in life. You give somebody an inch, they take a mile, and what we've seen on time and time again is 1-to-1 ratio, 1-to-3 ratio. We get on job sites, and there's a 1-to-7 ratio, a 1-to-12 ratio, 1 apprentice for 12 journeymen. A lot of cases, we show up on a job site to talk to non-union electricians, and there's no journeyman on the job site. No master on the job site. These kids are running around unsupervised, working with live voltages, putting themselves in danger, putting the customer in danger, putting, our kids in danger at the schools that they're working on, putting a homeowner in danger, by doing, not quality craftsmanship. So, yeah.
Thank you. Representative Wozniak.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. With regard to our labor shortage in the state of Michigan, how do you see us manifesting a correct number or a bigger number of master electricians or plumbers to satisfy the requirements in this statute?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so the last electrical board meeting that we had for the last one was actually an individual trying to getting the state to allow him to take his master's test. Again, what has to happen is you have 2 years, and you have to have 4,000 hours, and you have to have a letter from your master electrician employer to be able to sit the right and take your master's test. The individual that was the employer and also the master of the company would not certify his hours. And that created an issue for him because he's being held back from becoming a master because there's no enforcement. And that's what this bill is doing, is putting on the employer to make sure that they are certifying hours and that they are doing that stuff. And I'm speaking on behalf of the enforcement part of this bill, right? So there are people that are being currently held back from becoming master electricians because employers don't have to do the right thing, right? And so actually, this individual had another employer that he could go further back and try to get him to certify the hours as well. Because this individual has been working for 8 years, has more than enough. He just has to have that letter, right? So there are people that are being held back, sir, because there's no enforcement. And master electrician employers can choose not to do the right thing. And that's what I'm speaking on behalf of that, sir.
Okay, I guess that sidestepped my question, though.
Now I'm going to answer your question here.
There you go.
Is it going to, I believe your question was, is it going to restrict, the amount of master electricians we have in the state of Michigan?
Well, how do you produce that number that we're going to need under this statute?
Right. So do we want quantity or do we want quality?
Well, that's obvious.
Right. So, and that's the reality of it is you think of, we've been hearing for decades in our public schools and just schools in general that, classroom size makes a difference, smaller classroom size makes better students. It's kind of the same, mentality. But I mean, the unprecedented boom in construction, not only in Michigan, but nationwide, I don't, getting more is a challenge regardless, what we're talking about here, so.
So my question was, how do you meet that challenge? That's specifically my question.
Yeah, so
how do you meet that challenge?
We've increased our apprenticeship, we brought in more apprentices in the last 2 years than we did the prior 10 years. And I think I can speak, across the state for that. I'm trying to think here. Say that question one more time, sorry.
All right. Yeah. We have to manifest a certain number
Yeah.
of masters in order to hire apprentices.
Right.
Okay. Where do we manifest that number? Where does it come from? Out of the sky or what?
Well, we have to train them, right?
Well, let's train them. What does that mean?
That means they have to be an apprentice, a registered apprentice.
But they have to have a master first.
One master, for the company.
Yeah. Where does that master come from?
That master comes from the field as a journeyman. Will take his test to become a master electrician.
Is there a field out there? Does it work?
What's that?
Have we got enough people?
Do we have enough people? Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
You bet.
Representative Menser.
I'm not sure it's really a question, but my grandfather was an IBEW Local 58 journeyman electrician for almost 40 years. And I remember as a kid, him telling us stories of the new guy who stuck his pliers in the wrong hole and caused a spark and a fire. I remember his stories of trainees making grievous errors because there were so many people on that job site. So I want to be very clear that I am 100% in support of this ratio because it makes our workers' safety safer and it makes the facilities that they're working in safer also.
Representative Wigella.
Do you want to go first?
Yeah, we've had a swap out.
Chair Hadsma, I have ants in my pants back here because I wanted to answer Representative Wozniak's question if the chair would allow.
I would allow that.
Thank you, Chair Hadsma. So the question is, if we have a 1-to-1 ratio as opposed to 3-to-1 ratio, how are we going to have enough journeyman electricians to do it, correct? Well, in the state of Michigan, we have somewhere in the ballpark of 16,000 journeyman electricians. In any given year, we have between 1,000 and 1,500 apprentice electricians. So we could have a 1-to-1 ratio, and there's plenty of journeymen available today to meet that ratio.
Thank you for your clarification.
Thank you, Chair.
That I think is actually a good segue into the point I wanted to make. I'm not an expert on understanding the entire process of going from journeyman to master, but I would imagine that there's tests involved and there's things that you have to complete along the way. Is there a logical argument that could be made that having a 1-to-1 ratio would allow students to faster be able to pass that test, meaning that it would lead to more masters and a faster rate rather than having 3 apprentices at once?
Yeah, I would say that's a yes, 100%. Yeah, the one-on-one training, not only in the field, but we're also giving classroom instruction as well, and that 100% helps us out. We have a 95% pass rate in the IBW, of our apprentices. First time taking that test, right? Can't say as much on the other side, but yeah, it's 100%. Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah. So.
Okay, Representative Kuntz, I allowed Representative Wigella to ask another question. I know you asked a 2-for-1 question before, but do you have any other questions?
In your collective bargaining agreement, what is the ratio?
In our collective bargaining agreement, it is a 3 journeymen for every 2 apprentices. So in essence, 1.5 journeymen for 1 apprentice. It's kind of silly, but
So,
so we go above and beyond the 1-to-1 ratio.
Journeyman to apprentice.
Journeyman to apprentice. 3 journeymen for every 2 apprentices.
thank you.
So 1.5 journeymen for every 1 apprentice.
I understand. Yeah, got it. Okay,
Makes
had to
sense,
picture
yeah.
it.
So we go above and beyond to make sure.
First coffee. Thank you.
No problem, no problem.
Thank you, gentlemen. I think you're welcome. I think the questioning is completed. I have some cards in relation to, I'm going to do 829 and 830 first, clerk. I have some cards in relation to 829 and 830 first. Supporting the bill but not wishing to speak is Eli Izagiri from the Michigan Regional Council of Carpenters and Millwrights. Opposing the bill but not wishing to speak is Don Crandall from the Home Builders Association of Michigan. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to report out Senate Bill 829. Vice Chair Menser moves to report with recommendation. Will the clerk please take the roll?
On the motion to report, Chair Hadsma?
Yes.
Representatives Menser?
Yes.
Colazar?
Yes.
O'Neill?
Yes.
Andrews?
Yes.
Churches? Yes. Wogella?
Yes.
Wozniak?
Pass.
Mueller?
Pass.
Kuntz?
No.
Mr. Chair, you have 7 yeas, 1 nay, 2 pass. Senate Bill 829 is reported with recommendation.
I've already read cards about 830 as well as 829. Are now entertain a motion to report out Senate Bill 830. Representative Colazar moves to report with recommendation. Will the clerk please take the roll?
On the motion to report, Chair Hadsma?
Yes.
Representatives Menser?
Yes.
Colazar?
Yes.
O'Neill?
Yes.
Andrews?
Yes.
Churches? Yes. Wogella?
Yes.
Wozniak?
Pass.
Mueller?
No.
Kuntz?
No.
Mr. Chair, you have 7 yeas, 2 nays, 1 pass. Senate Bill 830 is reported with recommendation.
I now have a number of cards to read in relation to Senate Bill 895. Kaylee Hunt from the Michigan Nurses Association doesn't wish to speak but supports the bill. Price Dobernick from He is an international representative with the United Association of Plumbers and Fitters, supports the bill, doesn't wish to speak. Jeremy Garza from the Lansing City Council supports the bill, doesn't wish to speak. Dustin Howard, business manager for UA Local 333, supports the bill, doesn't wish to speak. Ryan Bennett from the Michigan Pipe Trades, he's president, supports the bill, doesn't wish to speak. Jeffrey O'Donnell from IBW 58, doesn't wish to speak, supports. Neil Parrish from the National Electrical Contractors Association, doesn't wish to speak, supports. Steve Claywell from the Michigan Building Trades, doesn't wish to speak, supports. Al Pasholka from the Lake Michigan College, doesn't wish to speak, opposes the bill. Mike Johnston from the Michigan Manufacturers Association, doesn't wish to speak, opposes the bill. Jacob Manning from the Small Business Association of Michigan, doesn't wish to speak, opposes. Shane Hernandez from ABC Contractors of Michigan, doesn't wish to speak, opposes. Amanda Fisher from NFIB, doesn't wish to speak, opposes. Justin Carpenter from EIBC, doesn't wish to speak, opposes. Wendy Block from the Michigan Chamber of Commerce, doesn't wish to speak, opposes. Marcus Keach from the Grand Rapids Chamber of Commerce, doesn't wish to speak, opposes. And Don Crandall from the Home Builders Association of Michigan, doesn't wish to speak, but opposes. Are now entertain a motion to report out the S2 version of Senate Bill 895. Representative O'Neill moves to report with recommendation. Will the clerk please take the roll?
On the motion to report, Chair Hodsma?
Yes.
Representative Spencer?
Yes.
Colasar?
Yes.
O'Neill?
Yes.
Andrews?
Yes.
Churches? Yes. Wagella?
Yes.
Wozniak?
No.
Mueller?
No.
Coons?
No.
Mr. Chair, you have 7 yeas, 3 nays, 0 pass. Senate Bill 895 is reported with recommendation.
Thank you, clerk. I would now entertain a motion to report out House Bill 5595, about which we heard testimony on May 23, 2024. We have a number of cards to read in relation to that. Not wishing to speak. Excuse me. Excuse me, I said 5595. It's 5594. I have a number of cards to read in relation to this House bill. Bob Kiefken of the Michigan Association of Secondary School Principals supports the bill, doesn't wish to speak. Brenda Pilgrim of the Michigan Association of School Boards doesn't wish to speak, supports the bill. Jerry Johnson of the, I know him as Calhoun County ISD, doesn't wish to speak, but supports the bill. Leah Robinson from the Michigan Chamber of Commerce doesn't wish to speak, is neutral. Amy Drum for the Michigan Retailers Association doesn't wish to speak, is neutral. Don Crandall from the Home Builders Association of Michigan doesn't wish to speak and opposes the bill. Representative Andrews moves to report with recommendation House Bill 5594. Will the clerk please take the roll?
On the motion to report, Chair Hodsma?
Yes.
Representative Spencer?
Yes.
Colasar?
Yes.
O'Neill?
Yes.
Andrews?
Yes.
Churches? Yes. Wagella?
Yes.
Wozniak?
Pass.
Mueller?
Pass.
Coons?
Pass.
Mr. Chair, you have 7 yeas, 0 nays, 3 pass. House Bill 5594 is reported with recommendation.
Thank you. Senate Bills 963, 964, and 965 are Senate versions of bills this committee has discussed previously. These bills deal with adding teeth to our child labor laws. I would entertain a motion to report out Senate Bill 963. Representative Churches moves to report with recommendation. Will the clerk please? No, I got a lot of cards to read in. Or are these all on? Some of these are 963, some of them.
They're kind of all over.
Okay.
If you, I can delineate in the minutes if you just want to read.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read in all the cards and indicate which ones are related to which Senate bill. Bob Kefkin of the Michigan Association of Secondary School Principals doesn't wish to speak, supports Senate Bill 964. Brenda Pilgrim of the Michigan Association of School Boards doesn't wish to speak, supports Senate Bill 964. Jerry Johnson from the Calhoun ISD doesn't wish to speak, supports Senate Bill 964. Leah Robinson of the Michigan Chamber of Commerce doesn't wish to speak, is neutral on 964. Marcus Keach of the Grand Rapids Chamber of Commerce doesn't wish to speak, is neutral on Senate Bill 964. Amy Drum from the Michigan Retailers Association doesn't wish to speak, is neutral on 964. Mike Johnston of the Michigan Manufacturers Association doesn't wish to speak, opposes Senate Bill 965. Amanda Fisher from NFIB doesn't wish to speak, opposes Senate Bill 965. Leah Robinson of the Michigan Chamber of Commerce doesn't wish to speak, opposes 965. Jacob Manning of the Small Business Association of Michigan doesn't wish to speak, opposes 965. Amy Drum of the Michigan Retailers Association doesn't wish to speak, opposes Senate Bill 965. Marcus Keach of the Grand Rapids Chamber doesn't wish to speak, opposes Senate Bill 965. Eli Izagiri from the Michigan Regional Council of Carpenters and Millwrights doesn't wish to speak, supports Senate Bills 963, 4, and 5. Don Crandall of the Home Builders Association of Michigan doesn't wish to speak, opposes Senate Bills 963, 4, and 5. Keely Hunt for the Michigan Nurses Association doesn't wish to speak, supports Senate Bills 963, 4, and 5. Rachel Richards of the Michigan League for Public Policy doesn't wish to speak, supports Senate Bills 963, 4, and 5. Ryan Seabolt of the Michigan AFL-CIO doesn't wish to speak, supports Senate Bills 963, 4, and 5. Brad Wilson of the United Food and Commercial Workers, 951, doesn't wish to speak, supports 963, 4, and 5. Aaron Squeo of United Food and Commercial Workers, 876, doesn't wish to speak, supports Senate Bills 963, 4, and 5. And Todd Tennis of the IBEW Michigan State Conference doesn't wish to speak, supports Senate Bills 963, 4, and 5. Now, having read all those cards in, I'll entertain a motion to report out the S1 version of this. I guess I've already done that, so I think 963 Representative Churches made that motion. Will the clerk please take the roll? Oh, we have an amendment. Representative Kuntz, would you like to speak to both your amendments? Let's do 963 first. Would you like to speak to your amendment to Senate Bill 963?
And I appreciate the latitude today, Mr. Chair. I'm going to talk to both of them. They really go together. So what I'm proposing is to take this from a felony back to a misdemeanor. And my concern, I support the midnight to 5 a.m. regulation. That's good policy. My concern is that if we have a poster that's out of date, or if someone under 16 inadvertently stays past 9 p.m., they lose track of time, it could be a felony. And I think that's just egregious. So I like the idea, but I think we're going too far. Current law, it's a misdemeanor. I think we're just going too far with it. So this could be an honest mistake that, again, a poster is out of date, or someone stays a little bit late by accident. That's not felony status. So my amendments for both of them, they do the same thing. Take it from felony back to misdemeanor, which is current law.
Thank you.
Thank you.
At this time, we will take a vote.
Would you like a separate motion for 963? Yes, we would. I know who runs the show. I would like to make a motion, Mr. Chair, that my amendment for 963 is voted on.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now take a vote on that motion. Ms. Clerk, please take the roll.
On the motion to amend Senate Bill 963, Chair Hadsma?
No.
Representatives Menser?
Pass.
Colazar?
No.
O'Neill?
Pass.
Andrews?
No.
Churches? No. Wogella?
No.
Wozniak?
Yes.
Mueller?
Yes.
Coons?
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 3 yeas, 5 nays, 2 pass. The amendment is not adopted.
Okay, we have another motion. This one is on 965, and you need to make motions.
Correct, yes. And again, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Dakota, for that. I would like to make a motion that my amendment on 965 is voted on, please.
Ask for a roll call vote on the motion to substitute, to amend. Thank you.
On the motion to amend Senate Bill 965, Chair Hotzma,
No.
Representatives Munster,
Pass.
Colzar,
Pass.
O'Neill,
Pass.
Andrews,
Pass.
Churches,
Pass.
Wagella,
No.
Wozniak,
Yes.
Mueller,
Yes.
Coons.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 3 yeas, 2 nays, 5 passed. The amendment is not adopted.
I need a motion. Representative Churches moves to report with recommendation Senate Bill 963. Will the clerk please take the roll?
On the motion to report, Chair Hotzma,
Yes.
Representatives Munster,
Yes.
Colzar,
Yes.
O'Neill,
Yes.
Andrews,
Yes.
Churches, Wagella,
Yes.
Wozniak,
No.
Mueller,
No.
Coons.
No.
Mr. Chair, you have 7 yeas, 3 nays, no pass. Senate Bill 963 is reported with recommendation.
I now accept a motion to report out the S1 version of Senate Bill 964. Representative Wagella moves to report with recommendation. Will the clerk please take the roll?
On the motion to report, Chair Hotzma.
Yes.
Representatives Munster.
Yes.
Colzar.
Yes.
O'Neill.
Yes.
Andrews.
Yes.
Churches.
Yes.
Wagella.
Yes.
Wozniak.
No.
Mueller.
No.
Coons. Mr. Chair, you have 7 yeas, 3 nays, no pass. Senate Bill 964 is reported with recommendation.
I'll now entertain a motion to report out the S1 version of Senate Bill 965. Vice Chair Menser moves to report with recommendation. Will the clerk please take the roll?
On the motion to report, Chair Hotzma.
Yes.
Representatives Munster.
Yes.
Colzar.
Yes.
O'Neill.
Yes.
Andrews.
Yes.
Churches.
Yes.
Wagella.
Yes.
Wozniak.
No.
Mueller.
No.
Coons.
No.
Mr. Chair, you have 7 yeas, 3 nays, no pass. Senate Bill 965 is reported with recommendation.
There being no further business before us, the House Committee on Labor is adjourned.